is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the News Channel 5 network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello everyone, welcome. We are talking about the Jewish faith in Middle Tennessee. How large is it? What do we need to know? Happy to have with us Mark Friedman, Executive Director of the Jewish Federation and Jewish Foundation of Nashville. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you, the Executive Director of Jewish Federation, Jewish Foundation. What does that foundation do?
Okay, the Jewish Federation, a simple shorthand for people in Nashville area who may be unfamiliar with it, we're really the United Way of the Jewish community. The Jewish Federation organizes an annual campaign that raises about $2.5 million to meet a variety of Jewish needs annually in the community. We help fund the Gordon Jewish Community Center, a day school called the Akiva School, the Jewish Family Service, a Jewish Student Services program at Vanderbilt University, Vanderbilt Hillel, and then we provide a variety of funds for services overseas, primarily in Israel. So that's the annual campaign part through the Federation. We also operate a community relations committee. We publish a Jewish newspaper. There are a whole host of activities that we have.
And I want to ask about your trips to Israel a little later.
Okay.
But how large is the Jewish community right now in Nashville, Middle Tennessee?
Well, you've asked a very pertinent and timely question because we just finished a community study to look at the Jewish community, to estimate the size of the population, which we hadn't done in more than a decade, and also to find out about different issues and attitudes of people in the Jewish community. So we found out that there are approximately 8,000 Jews living in Nashville and Middle Tennessee area, which is a 7-county area, but primarily Davidson and Williamson County, with 4,700 Jewish households. There are another 3,000 people who are not of the Jewish faith living in those households. So the total service population that we estimate that we have is 11,000 people who are involved in Jewish life in Nashville.
So many ministers who come on this show, we talk about the challenges facing churches today, that membership in many denominations is down. So those numbers, do they represent an increase, a decrease, a kind of maintaining the status quo? Where are you?
Well, looking back over the last decade or so, we've found that the Jewish community has experienced what we would call slow and steady growth. Not dynamic or explosive, but certainly there are more households here than there were a decade ago, probably about 600 or 700 more, and the Jewish population has probably increased by about 1,000 over the last decade.
What in that survey was identified as what were identified as some of the big concerns facing the Jewish community?
Well, you know, certainly there are many issues that confront all kinds of families in the community. What we really looked at were, in the demographic study, were the things that were going well for us. One of the things that we found is it's a very cohesive Jewish community, that people in the Jewish community might belong to one synagogue or congregation but attend programs at another, that the programs of the Jewish Federation have had an impact on people participating in Jewish life. The challenges that we have is that there used to be a core area for the Jewish community that pretty much ran from the edge of Bellevue through Midtown down to the Vanderbilt area, and that's changing. We have a large number of Jewish families who are now living in Williamson County, in other parts of Davidson County, in Germantown, and East Nashville. So the challenge to us really is to be able to reach out to those families, to have programs that they can participate in if they're interested in Jewish life, and also to reach out to people who are non-traditional Jewish families, those that might be involved in an interfaith marriage, who would like to participate in Jewish life but aren't exactly sure how to become involved, and that's a big initiative that we'll be working on in the next couple of years. Outreach to the unaffiliated, outreach to those who are not living in the core Jewish area, and interfaith families.
And that's interesting, outreach to the non-affiliated. Do do you see people coming in to the Jewish faith or to synagogues who are maybe they were raised outside of the church, or maybe they were raised in a totally different faith? In other words, they weren't born into a Jewish family. Is that a large number of people coming in, or not?
It's a significant number nationally. Locally, we kind of are trending along with the national trend, but the concept behind welcoming interfaith families, those that weren't in the Jewish faith or those that are considering going into the Jewish faith, are giving them opportunities to participate in Jewish life and to ultimately make decisions about whether they're going to convert to Judaism or stay in their own faith and share Jewish life with a spouse or significant other.
What would be a huge misunderstanding that Christians may have? We're what is it? Buckle of the Bible Belt.
Buckle of the Bible Belt.
What would you want somebody who doesn't know? They don't know a lot about the Jewish faith. How would you describe what you believe and some of the differences?
Well, those are questions that might be better answered by our wonderful rabbinical corps here in Nashville. But I would say primarily that Jews just want to be able to participate in communal life just like everyone else. We have some different holidays. There's a slightly different calendar that Jews follow. There's a Hebrew calendar as well as the secular calendar that we're used to. So I'll give an example of things that sometimes Jewish families might confront if their kids are in private school, in a public school or a private school that is not a Jewish school, and there is only one Jewish day school in all of Nashville, and that's called the Akiva School, where there are kids who can go to a Jewish day school from kindergarten to 6th grade. But we have Jewish holidays, Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, Yom Kippur, the Day of Repentance. These typically come in September or October. This year they're early October. We have Passover in the spring, either in March or April. And sometimes teachers inadvertently will schedule a test where a Jewish child wants to be home and celebrate the holiday with their family. So we work with the schools, and through our Community Relations Committee, for example, we provide them with a Jewish calendar, a 4 or 5 year Jewish calendar, so they can plan out those days far in advance to know when Jewish children may not be involved in school. There are also other opportunities that people may have to pass up if they're a particularly observant family. For example, football games take place on Friday night and Saturday. So for Jewish families who are primarily Orthodox and observe the Sabbath, meaning they won't drive or work on Friday night and Saturday until Saturday evening, wouldn't be able to participate in those activities. So those are a couple of examples.
And there's enormous sort of the communication among the different faiths. You, as I said, you've been to Israel several times. You just recently led a trip of Christian ministers to Israel. Talk about that, and I guess the outreach among the different denominations and religions.
Well, one of the things we are very focused on at the Jewish Federation through our Community Relations Committee is the perception that people in the community have of Israel, both in the Jewish community and in the broader community. We have a great love for the state of Israel, feel that it is vitally important as a focus for a vibrant Jewish life, and sometimes the media doesn't do a great job of portraying what's going on in Israel. Often people will say to me, how can you go to Israel? It's so dangerous over there. And I say, how can you go to certain cities in the United States? It's equally dangerous there, if not more dangerous. So the first thing we do is try and educate people about what a wonderful country Israel is, how friendly it is, how accessible it is, other than the long plane ride over there. And we just tell them, you have to be able to experience that. And before I talk about the clergy trip that we took last year, this past March and April, the Jewish Federation organized a trip to Israel for the Jewish community. with the involvement of all 5 Jewish congregations in town with their clergy leadership, and we brought 84 people to Israel from Nashville. Think about that. That's 1% of the Jewish population of Nashville was all in Israel at the same time, touring the country for either 7 or 10 days, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And it was an incredible time. And there were bad things that were happening in Israel at that time. There were some terrorist episodes, but it didn't stop a single person from going to Israel. So it's like anything else in life. If you care about it strongly, you're going to do it. And the Jewish Federation, one of our primary missions is to advocate for the state of Israel and to encourage people to go as often as we can. We always like to say, or I always like to say, as important as it is to stand with Israel, it's important also to stand in Israel.
And so that's fascinating to me. 84 went, and there had been some recent troubling events, very troubling events. Yes. And 80 some odd people went. What do you think they most gained? So they come back and they say what? What is the biggest benefit?
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, it's created a lot of interaction among people who perhaps did, even though we're a small community, a lot of people didn't know each other. So they had a chance over these 7 or 10 days to really learn about each other, to make new friendships, which is very important. Coming back to be able to share those experiences, and now starting to celebrate holidays and friendships together after they've returned. They had an exposure to the rabbis of the other congregations that they may have not had before. And they're now advocates for Israel, to tell other people to go. And that's one of our important goals, to continue to build upon the success that we had with that trip and the ones that we've taken prior, that will encourage people to continue to go to Israel. Because particularly for young adults and teens, one of the strongest formative experiences that they can have to connect them to their Jewish identity is to visit Israel. For example, we support a program called Birthright Israel through our Jewish Federation annual campaign. This is essentially an entitlement, a free trip for a college-age student between the ages of 18 and 26 to have a 10-day trip to Israel, no strings attached, to be able to visit the country with their peers. And when they come back, we found that their participation in Jewish life is much higher than those that haven't had that experience. And since 1999, over 500,000 young Jewish Americans have had the opportunity to visit Israel because of this Birthright Israel program.
Fascinating. All right, and before we go to break and come back with what in the trip that you took with the Christian ministers, what do you think they most learned?
Well, they learned a lot. And it was a trip that had a specific purpose. We wanted to expose members of the primarily Episcopalian, Methodist, Baptist, and Presbyterian faiths to life in Israel on a daily basis, to let them see the good and the bad, the issues between Israelis and Palestinians. But we were also trying to address a very critical issue which impacts the broader Jewish community, and that is there's a movement called the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement, which is targeted against Israel by various Christian faiths and also other organizations, international organizations, that are encouraging companies to stop doing business in Israel and also to stop investing in companies that do business with Israel. And we wanted to say and expose these Christian clergy to a full story of Israel, to let them make a judgment about themselves if BDS is a proper way to have movement on the political conflict. And I think they came home seeing that that was not the best way to go, that the best way to go in any situation where there are people who have disagreements is for them to talk directly to each other.
And as somebody who's been so many times, we have to take a break. Then I want to come back and talk about, when you talk about political conflict, are you optimistic about where things are headed in the Middle East and the world?
Wow.
So ponder on that. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.